Oh yeah.
Okay, great. This is our first Metro chat, our first live stream chat. So if this is not working, forgive me. Don't blame Adriane. Welcome to our first live stream chat. It's with all the candidates running in Vancouver's upcoming election. Over the next week, we're interviewing the mayoral candidates in 10-minute one-on-one chats. We invited readers to submit questions, and you guys have. Thank you very much. And first up, we have Adriane Carr. She is the first Green Party candidate to be elected to City Council. And her party isn't running a mayoral candidate, but it's polling neck and neck with Vision Vancouver. So we decided to invite Adriane in to ask some of your questions. Welcome.
Oh, pleasure to be here. This is an exciting format. Thanks for doing this.
So I'm going to start with a really tough question for the Green candidate. What's your favorite color?
That's interesting. You know what? I mean, I love green out there in nature, but generally speaking, I'm kind of a orange and purple kind of person.
I like it. I like it. Okay, so enough with the joking around. In a poll of more than 600 Metro readers, we found that affordable housing and transportation emerged as the top priorities for our readers. We have one question from Sean Miller, a reader. He says, affordable housing is a big issue in Vancouver. This year's International Housing Affordability Survey ranked Vancouver the second least affordable city in the world. What policies would you implement if the Green Party is elected to try to ease some of that affordable housing pain?
Right, and it is pain, and it's affecting everybody. Number one, we have to define affordable housing accurately. When you define affordability, as Vision has done, starting at over $1,400 for a studio suite and then going up above $2,000, it's simply not affordable for the majority of Vancouverites. So you've got to start by saying what is truly affordable to meet the needs of Vancouverites, else you're never going to get there. Secondly, you've got to protect what we've got now. We have affordable housing that was built many years ago, rental apartment blocks that were built, and we need an accurate survey of those, an up-to-date annual survey, so we would make that happen. You need to protect that affordable housing, and the biggest thing you can do to protect it is not upzone the land that affordable old rental stock is sitting on, because that puts the value of the land so high that it's worthwhile for developers to purchase those properties, tear them down, and build new. So we've got to change the zoning and exempt from upzoning those older apartment buildings. We've got to find funding to upgrade those apartment buildings. Some of that's pressuring the federal government. Some of it could be creating a new fund within the city, maybe through our own carbon fund, to upgrade older buildings for affordability, or to keep that affordability, and for energy conservation, which means you get a better building in the end. And finally, we've got to pursue new strategies. We like what's happening up in Whistler. In Whistler, they have an affordable housing agency that requires that developers, if they're building multi-unit dwellings, whether it's townhouses to own or apartments to rent, that if there's 10 or more units, a 10th of them would be submitted towards the housing agency, and at cost, transparently measured at cost. And then those units made available to people who work in the city who currently don't have access to affordable housing.
And so you said the important thing was defining affordable housing. How would you define that? And oftentimes we feel the conversation goes towards people who are on a very low income, who are struggling to get by on the welfare rates, or the people who are very rich and buying luxury houses that they're leaving empty. How do you define affordable housing for those people in the middle who are, say, making $40,000 a year?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we need to aim at. Well, we would use a standard definition that's used by both the federal and provincial governments, which is that if somebody's spending more than 30% of their income on housing, it's no longer affordable. So you have to do the 30% of income. So let's figure out what the average income is, especially of renters in this city. It was $34,000 last year. It's about $40,000 this year. And you take 30% of that, that should be the affordable level that is built into our city's definition of affordability.
Another question from a reader. and it talks again about affordable housing in the city's built environment. They say that we have a lot of energy inefficient glass towers in Vancouver. To make our city more sustainable, would you support amendments to the city's building code to significantly restrict the use of glass, curtain walls, and air conditioning?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. And in fact, we are not going to achieve our greenhouse gas emission reductions at the rate we're going in the city because we are building the wrong kinds of buildings and we're not requiring them to be energy, actually carbon neutral is the term, or zero net energy. And that's the goal for 2020, but we are not there. And glass towers are really a problem. So number one, we think we should be emphasizing growing our city in a way that is much more sustainable, energy efficient, and good for the economy of BC. So wood frame buildings, for example, 3 to 4 story walk-ups. We've got to get right into the passive house standards, which are the best standards in the world for energy efficiency. We should be manufacturing parts for passive houses, the kind of windows and framing components that they need to build those homes here. We could really be building not only better housing, but in fact, a better economy by shifting from the tower development to a more moderate, low-rise development that fits better with neighborhoods, that's ecologically efficient, and by the fact that costs are lower for building wood frame, much less expensive.
So that brings us again to the green goals. The Vision Vancouver has been very clear about its goal to make this the greenest city in the world by 2020. You have supported a lot of their policies. What would the Green Party do differently than Vision is doing so far to make that achievement possible?
Right. Yeah, I am totally on board for greening our city because it's what we have to do for our children in the future. We have to combat climate change in every way we possibly can. So the one thing we would do is not necessarily aim to be the greenest city in the world, because when you do that, it puts your emphasis on kind of the measurements that different organizations around the world and agencies use to give you the accolade or the stamp or the award for greenest. And we think that that puts you off track. For example, awards that say, oh, you're so green because you use LEED standards for housing. LEED is not energy efficient compared to passive house, so we've missed the boat on that, and we are not achieving our greenhouse gas emission reduction targets that we've aimed for in 2020. We are not on track to getting the kind of passive house standards for zero net energy that we have also said we are aiming for by 2020. So we are not on track, and we think, the Green Party, that those achievements have to be first and foremost in any Green City action plan. We also think that we're losing track on the basic kind of measurements. You can't aim to be a green city or the greenest city and not know where you're starting from and measuring things appropriately. Gardens, for example, you'll see statements that say we've got so many new garden plots in this city, but we don't know how many garden plots we've lost when we bulldoze backyard gardens as houses come down across the neighborhoods in this city. So you have to do the net result of all the actions.
So aside from measuring things like gardens, what would the Green Party do specifically to try to meet those goals?
Yeah, well, we think that it's worthwhile looking at establishing a local carbon trust here in the city. We have one for the province, the Pacific Carbon Trust, but other cities in other locations have a local carbon trust so that people could be investing. Let's say you like to fly to Hawaii in January.
I would.
Then you could, to assuage your guilt because it is bad for climate change, you could put your the equivalent money in that they say is a kind of a measure of the carbon you're using into a local carbon trust fund. And that money could be used, for example, to retrofit buildings.
Is that done in any other city in the world, or would this be a new policy that the Greens have thought up?
Well, there are other cities that have moved forward with local carbon trusts, and even here in British Columbia, in southern Vancouver Island. So it's not a new idea to establish a local carbon trust, but to tag the money for that carbon trust directly into retrofitting buildings is a new idea, and I think incredibly worthwhile because buildings are over 50% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the city.
Okay, great. Well, surprisingly, the 10 minutes is already up.
That's too fast.
I know that's so fast. I think I think we have to end it just so everyone gets the fair shake.
Great.
Thank you for being our guinea pig, and thank you so much for coming in and doing this. And thank you to the readers for the questions. We'll look forward to getting the rest of your questions throughout the week. Our next chats are tomorrow with independent mayoral candidate Bob Casting and COPE mayoral candidate Nina Wong. So please tune in then. And thank you again, Adriane. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you to you, Emily, and to Metro for doing this format. I think it's fantastic.
Thanks.